This video begins with the fact that the square root of x squared is the same thing as absolute value of x. And we can just do some inspection to verify this. Take something as simple as absolute value of, say, -7, right? Well, that just turns it positive. That's what absolute value does. Same thing if we were to take this -7 and square it inside the square root. Well, that leaves us with the square root of -7 squared is 49, and then the square root of 49 is 7. Right, and then of course if this was +7, right, absolute value of +7 is clearly just 7, and the square root of +7 squared is square root of 49. Back to 7 again. So notice that these two contraptions, the square root of x squared and the absolute value, do the exact same thing on every single number. And if they do the same thing to every number, then they must be the same thing. So these two are equivalent. How does that help us? Well, first let me say this. This also works for any even power and index, right? So it could be 4th root of x to the 4th. That's also absolute value of x. So this works for any even power and index. Power and index. The power is what I mean by power is this one here, and then the index is the 4th root. Now for odds, it doesn't work, right? Because for instance, if we had a cubed root of I don't know, -2 cubed, right? That would be cubed root of -8. But since it's an odd root here, the negative just comes out to the front. So that's negative cubed root of 8, which is -2. So this only works for evens. Okay, so I'm going to put a little caveat up here. Must be an even power and matching index. So 4 and 4, 2 and 2. Remember, there's a little hidden 2 right here. Okay, well that brings us to our problem that we're really trying to tackle here. Square root of x squared minus 8x plus 16. One special thing to note about this inside the square root is that it's a perfect square, right? So if we look closely at this, it's actually x minus 4 quantity squared. Right? This is what we call a perfect square trinomial. Thus, this radical becomes the radical of quantity x minus 4 squared. But then by our principle, this so-called fact right up at the beginning, a square root of something squared is always the absolute value of that. So there we have it. Absolute value of x minus 4 is how we arrived at that answer. So this works. It's not something that comes up often, but every once in a while you'll suddenly see an absolute value thrown in with radicals, and you might be saying, where did that come from? Just remember this is probably an even number root for the matching power. You have to toss in that absolute value.